Hey, greetings everybody. Gleekon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Stay a while and listen to this one. This one's called The Fall of Grond. In the last episode, we talked about how Agramar discovered Draenor. He also saw that it was this hive mind plant Evergrowth that controlled the world was unsustainable, that eventually it would just suck the world dry, and that would be the end of life on this planet. And Agramar, despite the fact that this isn't one of the planets they're looking for that has a true Titan core, they still, as agents of order, the Titans still want life to thrive and succeed. So he created life and sentience in a mountain, imbued it with all of the elements, and essentially created this demigod, Grond, to go and start whooping butt on the spore mounds. And he did. He one punch man them into space. And so then the remaining, and he separated them from each other. The remaining spore mounds got together and created, massed themselves into three basically avatars of their own, and went to go fight were the Titans, 3 spore mounds versus Grond. And in this episode, I'm guessing he loses. The fall of Grond doesn't sound good. Here we go. From the skies over Draenor, Agramar watched the spore mounds converge on Grond. Zang, Batan, and Nanu were determined to preserve the Evergrowth at any cost. They called upon their primal fury, and they lashed Grond with tendrils hard enough to crack diamond. Massive boulders crumbled away from the elemental giant's skin. The stones crashed to the ground with enough force to carve out valleys and shatter mountaintops. Also, if you're thinking about them, Zang is the fungal one, Batan is the forest one, and Nanu is the jungle one. Through their communal sentience, the spore mounds moved in perfect unison. They nearly overwhelmed Grond, and he teetered on the verge of collapse. But it was only for a moment. Like Agramar, Grond possessed a will that was forged of steel. He would not give up until he had brought balance to Draenor. Elemental storms howled to life over Grond's body as he gathered his strength and launched himself at the spore mounds. He pummeled them with fists that carried the weight of mountains. Each blow sheared away pieces of the verdant giants. Broken roots and seeds tumbled from the spore mounds and fell to the earth. The seeds, I think, is key, because that's what's going to seed the different types of life, plant life across the planet. Grond was relentless, but the spore mounds gave no ground. They endured the elemental giant's wrath and continued their fight for dominion over the world. The tide of battle shifted between each side, and the world's crust trembled and cracked beneath their feet. Though the spore mounds were resilient, they could not hold out forever against Grond's attacks. Zang suffered the most from the elemental giant. It was the smallest of the spore mounds and the first to fall before Grond's onslaught. That's no surprise, because that of the 3, that's the one that's clearly most related to a region. Grond took hold of Zang and tore the monstrous creature in half. The spore mound's shredded corpse toppled to the world's surface with a deafening thunderclap. In the ages to come, the rotting body would transform into a fungal region known as the Zangar Sea. Oh, okay, so they call it a sea, but it's really fungal. And I think the Zangar Marsh is only a marsh instead of a sea, a wetland, so much because it's being drained by the Naga, and it's drained down to marsh status. And I think much of what we see in Draenor is what happens when they've destroyed the life. So in the most part, this is like a super wet, like a mango grove style fungus wet sea, but fungus sea. And Warlords of Draenor, that's still there. Grond pressed his attack against Nanu and crushed the other giant between his unyielding hands. The lifeless spore mound collapsed to the ground. Its broken husk would slowly sink into the earth and become a region called Tanaan Jungle, which is endgame content for Warlords of Draenor, and eventually that becomes the Hellfire Peninsula once the Dark Portal opens there. I guess endgame and beginning game content. 2 spore mounts had fallen to Grond, but the long battles had chipped away at his mighty form. He was a shadow of his former self, riddled with cracks and fissures. Batan sensed his enemy's weakened state, but it needed power to defeat Grond. The Spore Mound leached the dwindling life essence from the bodies of Nanu and Zang, drawing the energies into itself and growing to a monstrous size, Super Saiyan. Even with its new strength, Bataan was cautious. It evaded Grond's direct assaults, all the while entangling its foe in thousands of small vines. The thorny tendrils coiled around Grond and gradually burrowed into the cracks and wounds on his skin. Grond considered the vines nothing more than a nuisance, and he ignored them, yet as the tendrils tunneled deeper and deeper, he realized the true threat they posed. By then it was too late. The vines wrenched open Grond's existing wounds and caused new fissures to erupt across his body. The elemental giant collapsed beneath his own weight and crumbled to pieces. The bulk of his corpse formed a mountain range at the edge of a region later known as Nargrand. So kind of related to his name, Grond. And also that's where the Oshugun Mountains and stuff, those are probably the pieces of him. And coincidence or not, that's also the region that is the most lush and verdant. Even in the Burning Crusade, it stayed healthy. It's like a holy place. And that's where the Throne of the Elements is. So it's got the best elemental power. It's all tied. So even his death created a land that was existing that had positive ripples to come. This is a picture of Grond battling the final Spore Mound. So that would be Bataan. That's pretty cool. It's good artwork. I like the way Grond looks with his little horns. He's got these tusks, which, considering orcs are going to come out of this, I could see like how they're doing this. On the one hand, they're making him Titan-esque, like the Sargeras Agramar. On the other hand, he's got like this bull form, almost like Tauren, but really, and he's got those tusks, making it some ties to the orc culture that is to come. Cool picture. All right, we're starting to shape the land of Draenor, which is neat. Okay, another episode in the pipes, 5x5, and I will catch you guys on the next episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thanks.